And we'll share the screen.
Sure.
Good luck. At Jennifer's office.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She told me about that yesterday.
It was really bad. All right, so we're going to just go back into a page. So I'm going to go into the same page that we did last time, but any page that has content will work. And we can always add content in if you have just a blank page. Let's see, DesignPLUS. I need to clean this course out, is what I really need to do. Well. Oh yeah, all sorts of good stuff in this one. Okay, we'll do this page. So what we're going to do is find any page, and we're going to edit the page again. And when we edit the page, we're going to click on the rocket again. As Hillary said before the meeting, edit the page, and that was the way to go. So we're going to go into the rocket, and again, we're going to click on this gear settings. And when we click on that, down here where it says select a comfort level, we're going to click on intermediate. I am positive we just want to push forward just a little bit. So the intermediate is going to give us more customization, and it's really a nice thing to work with that way. So a couple of things to be aware of. I'm just going to scroll through some things and show you kind of what we get by clicking the intermediate, and then have you add two other things as well. So in intermediate, we can customize the coloring for the banner, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment, as well as customizing some of the color palette if we choose to. Most people find that this colors basic is fine because we can adjust colors around text and elements and things of that nature. If you really are going to play with color, like you want to be able to use a color picker as opposed to just using sliders and codes, you might find this colors advanced more useful, but a lot of people don't need it there. The spacing and borders we'll talk about as we go. The box styles are really useful if you're going to be more active in creating like boxes around things. Most of our faculty are content without having that box style there. Welcome, Josh. We're editing a page.
Awesome.
So when we get there, when you get into Canvas and edit a page, I'll show you what we just did from there. The box styles, we won't worry too much about. HTML attributes, unless you want to get in and really hard code things, then don't worry about that. The additional actions are pretty good, but not essential right at the moment. Block alerts and text emphases, I'll show you how to work with those. Then down in this advanced elements, we're going to walk through all of these in gory detail. But the one or the two pieces that I want you to add is this pop-up, wow, come on, Justin, pop-up content. What that does is it creates some kind of a pop-up is what it is. It adds a pop-up in some form to your content. A lot of our faculty like these, so I engage this now. And then also we're going to engage this quick check as well. Quick checks create a multiple choice question on the page that does not tie to the gradebook, but it just allows the student to get a sense of whether they're learning the material or not. So I will show you that. Again, you can get into an advanced HTML editor if you prefer. I like having language accents available just because some faculty like using them. For example, in like our foreign language departments, they need the tilde, or they need an accent, or they need the umlauts or whatever. So I just have it there for my own purposes, but you may choose not to. That's up to you. And then the label view is not essential. So really all we did was add pop-up content and the quick check. Okay, Josh, are you into a page?
Yes. Okay, just click on my rocket.
Yep, click on your rocket, and then we're going to click on the settings on the gears on the right.
Advanced, intermediate, go to intermediate, up at the top. Gotta go to intermediate, uncomfortable,
Oh, okay.
and then all that stuff.
And then if you scroll down a little bit to the bottom of that, we'll add the pop-up content and the quick check.
Okay. So it automatically did all of the intermediate,
Uh-huh.
kept the advanced off.
And you can go in and turn on any of the advanced features if you want. It's just most of our faculty don't find them useful.
Okay.
I tend to have advanced clicked for myself just because of the things that I want to do. But most of the time, everything you'll want is found in intermediate.
Gotcha.
Really, it's just visibility taking away or showing.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's just making it show up in our menus or not. So, okay.
Okay.
So we now have our intermediate tools all set. We will close out of the settings. And now you'll notice, like you should notice here in an Add Advanced Elements menu, that tells you that you've got it correctly done. So we're going to start with spacing and color and some things like that, and then we'll get to the fun stuff in a few minutes. So, so I have here a page. I'm going to start by clicking on this image that I had put in there before. And when I click on the target, if you remember, the target allows me to edit elements. So I'm going to click on the target, and I already have set up like a image style set up, but I'm going to remove that image styling just so that it returns back to normal so that we can see the square of it. So I just want a plain Jane square image. It can be flush, that doesn't matter. But when I scroll down past this image size position style menu, I get colors and spacing and borders, as well as these block alerts and text emphasis. Now, we will talk a lot about these later, but what I'm going to do is open up the color menu for just a moment. And you'll notice that there is this apply to line. So when I hover over the apply to, it makes whatever that code is, it's going to highlight it. So if I highlight over this P, it highlights that whole paragraph. If I highlight over the div, it includes that entire building block. In this case, I just want the image. And I have the ability to do a background color or a text color. Now this isn't text, so the text color won't matter any. But I can go in and click on the background color, and I can grab a color from this slider, or if I know the hex code, I can grab that hex code and put it in here. What I usually do is I just go in and I type into the great Google hex color. And I really like this colorhex.com. It's a really useful website. I can come in and type in blue, and it pulls up the hex code for me if I want it. And I can copy and paste that. If you're also concerned about it, you can go into Snow College Marketing. And they have brand resources available. And you can grab the color guide. And it then has like Badger Blue and Snow College Orange and the accent color. So again, I can.
Not the RGB.
You could do the RGB or the hex code. You have to do the RGB in different formatting. So the hex code is the easiest one to use. It just grabs it and recognizes it. So I can come in and find a color, or I can type it in. So in this case, I delete that out. I'm going to put £sign and paste that number in.
So what page did you find that on?
Snow College Marketing. And then it's called the brand resources. So if you go to the marketing and then the brand, then there's this color guide, right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then all of the Snow College colors are right there. Apparently they have added in the gray now. This is new. I did not know that. So
Got it, great.
I am behind the times on my things. Okay, so I can come in and I can just type in this box, a hex code if I have it. I can also use the slider, and I'll show you how to use the slider. Today's entire experience is Justin is going to make this look awful, and don't copy what Justin does completely because it will look horrible by the end of today. So I'm going to choose that color. It's a nice badger blue. I choose it. So now it says that the background color will be that badger blue. So far, we don't have any way to see it, but if we click on this spacing for just a moment, there is two options. You have padding and you have margins. Now, margins are going to be how much it wants to be away from each other, from other objects. So that includes the edge of a page, that includes the top of the page or text. The padding, however, is how much it doesn't want to be by its own fence, by its own boundary line. So in this case, what I'm going to do for demonstration purposes is I'm going to click in this padding and I'm going to go all around and add a 10 pica or 10 pixel padding around it. Don't worry about the concept of the pixel. 10 is a pretty good number. Anywhere between 10 and 25 is probably a good mark for what we want. But as Kari pointed out, now you can see that blue background around the image if I want to do that. Now I can also adjust the padding individually. So if I want more padding on the top, I can come into this top and I can make it have more space on the top. Or I could come in on the left side and make it really big, or what, right, that's too big. It's going to crash if I do that, but I can make it 15 and make it more spaced out if I choose to do that. Now I can also go in and deal with my margins. So the margins are how much it wants to provide some space. So if I do margins all around of say like 10, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it kicked it off of the left or the right side a little bit, and it kicked it off of the top a little bit. So what this does is this guarantees 10 pixels between it and any other element. So it's not going to have the text right up against an image. However, I personally do not like having my margin or my pictures off of the right and off of the top. I want it right up against that boundary. So what I usually do is I make my top 0 and I make my right margin 0, but by default, I just come in and put my lower margin and my left margin at 10 or 15. That's just my default.
That's when you have images on the right side.
Exactly. If I had images on the left side, my margin would be 15 on this right side. Absolutely. So what that does is it now wraps around. So I'm just going to copy this so we can get some text in this space. And I keep putting it in and putting it in. So what this does is it provides a little bit of margining on the bottom. And then it also provides margining on the right. So if I were to save this page and shrink it down, or no, be shrinkable. Okay, so if I hadn't provided that margin, when I come in, eventually it would have gone right next to that period, this right here. It would have dropped that image right next to it, and I would have lost the period, probably because of the image. But what this is doing is, as I move it, it's saying, oh, you can't be too close to me, so it's going to keep kicking it back. And it's doing that on the bottom as well. And finally, if you can see, there's just a little bit of spacing right below it to force it around. So by default, I just always go in, I pick the image that I want, but I make sure that that left or that right, depending on where I put the picture, and that bottom margin are either set at 10 or 15. 10 is sufficient. That's going to give you a tight margin, but 15 gives you a bit more wiggle room. 20 starts looking a little heavy-handed. So unless I really want to create the space of white space and that visual appeal for that, then I would be aware of going all the way up to 20. But you can, like there's no police, but I would be aware of that. So I can also come in and I can change that background color if I want, so that I can darken the background color, or I can lighten the background color as well. Now, the darkening and lightening is done by adding black or removing black. And so it won't actually go into a nicer shade of blue, it becomes black eventually. So it goes down at a diagonal on the color palette. Not my favorite, but that's just how it is, okay? I can also remove the color by clicking on the X, and there it goes, it's gone. Now I can also customize borders by clicking on this border. Again, I want the border on this image. So the ordering is a little backward to me. I have to come into this middle column and tell it which border I want, and then I can tell it the thickness and the color. So I'm going to choose, say, a nice double border, and I'm going to make it like size 3, but it's white currently. So I'm going to choose a nice green color because I can. That's still too thin for you to see, so I'll make it bigger. Now, again, I have padding in here, and so it's shifting off of that. If I reset the padding to 0, now it fills in on that double border, okay? Or I could make it have like a padding of 5 and make it almost look like a triple border if I wanted to do that. I can also be very specific on individual aspects. So on the top border, I want a dashed line, and I want it to be a nice orange, and I want it to be size 5, and on the right border, I can make it a solid, and we haven't done purple today, so we'll choose purple, and we're gonna make it 15, and just emphasize. So I can be as specific and personal as I want to each of these. I can make that one disappear completely, and this one we're going to make solid. Oh, I already did solid. We'll do dotted and a nice blue. Okay, and so I can make it as big or small or whatever I want to do. You can make them unique and individual. Again, you probably don't need to make them all individual, but you can if you choose to. Okay, questions on doing that with an image? Okay, so I'm going to just highlight some text that is outside of a list. We'll get to a list in a few minutes. Lists behave a little differently. And I'm going to click the bold for a moment and make it some bold text. So now if I click anywhere inside that bold, my colors and spacing and borders automatically recognize that I was in a strong statement. Strong is the HTML way of saying bold. Okay. So I hover over this bold and it highlights in light blue that bolded text. Now I can come in and I can change the background color if I want of that bolded text, or I could change the text color of that bolded text. So I'll show you the text color for a moment. Maybe I want to do this nice orange. It's fun. And so I click on that and I come in and I paste it in. Oops, I've got a colon in there. Grab the colon. And so I want to choose that color. So now it automatically made that bold statement that orange color. But
Now, you could also use the colors at the top.
you could, absolutely. But if you use the colors at the top, you have to highlight it. This you don't. That's just a feature of it. This color used to not exist. So this is as of about 1.5 years ago, that color palette didn't exist in Canvas. You could do it, but it wasn't just as available. But now they've made it so that you have this color right here and the background color here completely. Yep. The nice thing about this, though, is it does tell me right here if I have failed in the accessibility. So the WCAG 2.0 ratio is a web accessibility guideline. And what it will do is it will say if that color fails at normal size text or large text. By large text, we mean 18 or bigger. So as to be accessible for people who have, for example, have difficulty distinguishing colors or are colorblind or need to magnify screens so that they can see the detail, they would not be able to see that with this orange. It's too similar to the white. So what we would then suggest to do is to either darken the text color until it passes or change the background so that it passes. So in this case, maybe what I can do is I can change the background color. Well, now I put in that blue and it automatically changed it back from orange to be black so that it would pass both of those. Now I can force it. I can go in and push the orange. Again, it fails. And so that's just telling me you can't, well, you can, right? Again, no one's going to come and police that unless a lawsuit comes, and then they'll police it. But that's just saying that it's not accessible, and that's awful, right? Like you can't see that with anything. But if I come in and change the text color to like the blue, then it says that it passes. So you can grab colors that pass. Like I might be able to get like a nice purple to still pass.
So it's either red or green, no yellow warning.
No, exactly. It's either red or green. So technically, the content guides go down to a single A rating. This program will only do AA or AAA, and everything beyond AAA or beyond AA is fail in their program guides. But in the technical absoluteness, you can get a single A ratio, but we just never see it in this program. So, so that exists. It's there. It's kind of cool. I can change the spacing. Again, I can add padding to that bold statement. So if I make padding, text looks a little weird because it's not going to know how to do the padding up and down. It's only going to do padding on the side. So I can make emphasis, but it looks funny. Margins, again, I can do margins if I want, but it doesn't look great. So whatever you choose, that's fine. But I can go in and I can do borders. So if I wanted a nice double line around that bolded term, I could do that. This would only be useful for visual effect. It's not going to get picked up by anything that's going to read the screen. It's just going to pick up the bold. But you can put a border around it. They also have done some pre-formatted highlights if you want. So if I wanted that text right there to have this nice blue call out, I could just put it there. That looks kind of funny because I have some bordering going on, so I'll highlight another piece and bold it and click inside it somewhere. So now I can choose that call out and it just makes that little box around the bolded text. They also have like some cool blocks that you can put in, nice pre-bordered things. They also have some shaded things that look really nice. They exist, whatever you choose. You're welcome to use those. Now below it are these text emphasis highlights. Those you have to highlight whatever text you want. And then I can come in and choose that yellow highlight, or I can come in and choose a nice rounded box or whatever. So that one I didn't have highlighted, it didn't grab it, it grabbed the space instead. So I can add some
Oh,
rounded boxes or other things. They exist, you're welcome to use them. But that's there. So I'm going to come in now into this list. Again, it recognized that I was in a list, so I could change the ordered list. But now I have the ability to do like the list item, or I could do the ordered list itself, the entire ordered list. So if I wanted the list item, maybe I come in and I create a nice border around that list item. And I can add a little bit of padding to that to get it off of the boundary. So if I really want to emphasize step one, I could do that. Or I could make the background of that a nice blue and then really emphasize. But I really like, I'm going to reset all of this out so that it goes back to what it should be. But if I click on the entire ordered list, I might, for example, choose to add a solid border around that border or around that list. I might choose a nice background color for that entire ordered list. And then I can change the padding. I want to change the right padding probably to be like 4, and then the left padding to be 4, and maybe the top and bottom to be 10 or something like that. Why is it not grabbing that? Oh, because I'm not in the right thing. No wonder it's not working. I can come in and grab this entire list, bring it in. Okay, something is funny. Reset to the default. There we go. Anyway, I can add and go around an ordered list and create some visual emphasis that way. Okay. Now, if you have it spanning over like we do here, you may have to play around with it a little bit to get it to span, but you can get it to do the span. Particularly if you were to choose like the entire div, you could get a box around it or something like that. Okay. So again, we can just come in and play with the spacing, the coloring, whatever we want. We have that same thing if we click in links. We can change the colors of the links. We can change borders, emphases, whatever we want with that. But what I really like, and I'm just going to go into this table again, and I'm going to remove all of my formatting that was already there. And I'm going to get rid of the, well, I want that. Oh, well, okay, I'll just leave it here as activities or whatever. So I can now click in the table, anywhere in the table. And if I come down, I now have the ability to change colors and spacing and things based on what I want them to be. So if I click on the TH, for example, you'll notice it's only highlighting this one cell. I could do the table row, or the table header would also do the same thing in this case, or the entire table. So for example, I can come into this, click on the table header, choose my background color to be school blue, and then I can leave this row blank. Clicking in the next row, again, I want to highlight the entire table row, not just the column that it's, or the single cell. I want the entire row. I come in and I find a nice gray. And so continuing on, if I add a couple of other rows below it, here's another row. I can just click in it, click in the background color, find that gray. Oops, notice I'm only in the table, the TH, not the table row. So I do that, I click on the background color, and I can then create my own color coding for the table if I choose to do that. You can play with spacing. I can go into the borders, for example. So on this entire table row, I want a nice double border that is bright red. And I choose that, and I want it to be noticeable. So I can do that. And then down here in my table or in my total, I have that. And so I only want that cell, and I come in and I make it a good double row that is going to be bright yellow, and I can make it bigger so that you can see the total there, or whatever you want. But this does provide a little bit more customization in the table that I can deal with. Okay, questions on any of that we've done so far? Okay, so there are some really good things you can do with color. Now, if I click up in the banner somewhere, this menu now changed. And so I can now click on the teardrop, which will allow me to change the colors of the banner. So for example, I can hover over the eyeball and it will highlight which thing is going to be applied to this. So when I hover over the unit wrapper, it's that entire oval gets highlighted. But the unit name is only that word chapter. The unit number would be just the number. The content title is where it says overview. The subtitle is this white bar. So I can come in and I can change now the colors. So for example, if I wanted to change this heading from being Badger blue to being a nice, well, that's a nice color. We'll do that. I could do just that section that says the overview and its surrounding text, leaving some blue above and below it, because I didn't highlight the entire section, I just did the heading. And I can come into the unit name and I can make it a nice green down here, really pretty. And I can do the unit number. Maybe we need it to be white, because we can, and the subtitle is going to be blue. Oh, that's lovely, right? So you can control and change all of these things. So as with our last meeting, the theme for today is just because you can doesn't mean you should. But when might you use this? So for example, I might consider making my unit wrapper all one color, or and because I've messed with it. Usually when you do the unit wrapper, it does all of it. So I might decide on my chapter 2, everything is going to have that green color. And then chapter 3, I might decide has orange, and chapter 4 is all purple, and chapter 5 is pink, and chapter 6 is whatever. I would consider doing just that top part for a different chapter or a different module, so that when the student gets there, they know that they're in the same module and they don't have to think about it.
So one of our teachers has a color per class.
Exactly.
So they know to go to the testing center and I get the blue ones.
Yes, that's
And so she would do that.
probably,
here.
yes,
She would keep all of those titles.
exactly.
Yeah.
So she could make those titles all blue, which would then color code her like how she's organizing her courses, and that would be completely fine. I would be careful about like this heading color. That may be an easier place to do that color change, but we want to be as aware of like being consistent as we can, and so we don't want to overwhelm students with color change as well, because when they get too much color change, they focus on the color change as opposed to the content.
Yeah.
So we just want to be aware of some of that. But yes, you can go in and you can change this. You have freedom to play around with it. Be aware, for example, these slight orange lines do not change color. And so that will be there because it's a default color in our programming that will just always be there. But you can change things. So like if I went in and changed this theme to like this one, those orange lines disappear. And so then I have more freedom to make some choices as to what colors I want and how I want them to appear. Okay. Or this one will just change out the coloring a little differently. Depending on what theme you have, will change out how those interact and what you want to do. In this case, the orange lines around will not be able to be changed. They're just there by default. But you can make them work however you want. Again, just because you can doesn't mean you should. You don't have to do everything. You can also go back in and like add the description into it if you want, and you can customize that description. So the description text tends to be very bright orange, and I don't like it. I find it very heavy on a page. And so that would be probably a space that I would come in. Sometimes you have to save the page in order to get that option to come up in the banner theme for that subtext, but I would probably make that subtext like white or a gray or something myself because I just don't like the orange. Okay, any questions on anything up to that point? So far, so good? Okay. Now we're going to move away from color. Color is fun, experiment with it. You can always undo color. We can also, if you save, restore back to a previous version. It's pretty easy that way. So now we're going to focus on this Add Advanced Elements. When I click on Add Advanced Elements, I get multiple menu options that are available. So the first menu option that we're going to look at is this accordions and tabs. Go ahead.
Sorry, I can't find Add Advanced Elements. Am I going to click on something first?
It is
Now,
Oh,
way, there you go.
oops, sorry.
I'm glad your lid is on.
always up.
Well, so I am in the habit of passing things at the table with the lid back on them. And my wife never did. She was like, well, that's ridiculous. Why should I have to take the lid on and off? And then we got a 2-year-old. And she's like, I see why you do that. I'm like, it works for me. Except for now we're on we have 4 kids now. And the 4-year-old yesterday was trying to show mom that the milk lids were on. And we were all like, no, not a good time in our house. Anyway. Okay, so we're going to focus first on these accordions and tabs. So in order to show you how the accordions and tabs work, because I think a demonstration helps in this, I'm going to go back to this Canvas Helps page. And in this course, we created a page on study skills. So the student comes along, and now all of a sudden they see these 3 tabs. Now I should have text here and I don't. I need to fix that. That says below are 3 tabs that highlight 3 different methods of studying. I should have something there to cue the student. I don't. So the student comes along and they hit this Cornell method. They read about the Cornell method, and then they click the tab, and they then read about the outlining method. And then they click the tab, and they can read about concept map methods. So that would be a tab. They basically hide the HTML until they're clicked on. It's just a hyperlink. It works in hiding the HTML. So I can also, with this tool, come in, and I need to be in the space. I launch the tool. I'll show you how to do all of this. I'm just trying to give you a demonstration for just a moment. When I come into it, I can also make it an accordion or an expander. So I'll show you what an accordion does because it seems to be a natural step for us. So the student comes along and now they get these menus. The student clicks on the menu and like an accordion, it opens its squeeze box. And then they come to outlining and it then opens that squeeze box. Notice the Cornell method closed automatically, okay? And then the concept map method does the same thing. The other option is an expander, and the expander functions the same as an accordion. It just allows multiple things to be open at once. And I am personally very enamored with them right now. Expanders just make sense to me. I like them. They just flow nicely on the page. So a student comes in, they again see those menus. This time they have the option to expand all of the content. We can collapse all of the content. I can open the Cornell method, I can open the outline method, and then I can open the concept method, and it stays open. Yeah, exactly, right, like it's just there.
Do we have any indication of which students prefer?
So there is, not from our, like I haven't done focus groups, but there are some things out there in general. The nice thing about these expanders, the student doesn't have to scroll up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And so they like the fact that it just, so if I were to collapse this again and click on the Cornell method, I read it. When I click on the outlining method, if you remember visually, when I had it in the accordion, it jumped my screen.
Mm-hmm.
And the students tend not to like that as much. This keeps me in place, and so they like that. Tabs, they also like tabs because we're very familiar with the concept of tabs if they don't lose the visual spacing of the tab. So by that, I mean, so this Cornell method takes up this much visual space. And as soon as I scroll down to the bottom of it, I've lost that tab, and I sometimes forget to go back to it.
Mm-hmm.
But if my tabs are about the same length, the content in the tabs are about the same length, the tabs tend to be very successful. I also think that it depends on what you want to do with them. And I'll show you some different options for that might make you want to choose one or the other. So when I click on the accordions and tabs, it allows me to either add it as a block or at the cursor. I never know where my cursor is, and so I'm just going to add it as a block, because the last time I did this and I didn't like purposefully click somewhere, it was in the heading and it made a big mess. Anyway, it's just a nightmare. So I just add it as a block. So I click add a block, and it creates this new section where it's asking for a panel heading and panel content. Now I can come in and I can tell it whether I want an accordion, an expander, or a tab. I, by default, go to expanders. They make sense to me. But you may find that tabs work better. So I do have to caveat, Josh, this originally was done in tabs because the images didn't work well in the expander. For some reason, the coding was getting caught up in the expander. Now it's working, so I'm going to leave it this way. But that's why it was there. So I can come in and I can type in this panel heading either in the tool itself or in the rich content editor. Be careful though, these delete things really quickly. And so if you're going to type in the rich content editor, start at the P and go to the G.
I just did that.
You did? Yep. If you hit undo, it should bring it back in, or you can just add another one back in. Because it just kind of, it's funny. It just does its thing. So you can edit it in either place. So this might be, for example, so I'm going to do something on logos for a moment. So then I can come in and talk about logos is the logical appeal. And then I've also got my nice video that has a brief explanation of me explaining logos, whatever. Then I can click over here on the right-hand side again and find this add panel. I add a panel, I can come in and do ethos, and then another add panel, and then we'll do pathos. Okay, so then I have all of those. I can insert videos, I can insert images, I can do anything that I could anywhere else in it. And then it creates this whole panel of expanding things. Something I like to do though, I'm going to add another block in just to show you another way to use this. This time I'm going to click on tab. So the panel heading this time, I'm going to put like review questions. So naturally in my course, I talk for a few minutes and then I ask them a rhetorical question that I want them to think about. Or I ask them an application question, right? So we've now been talking about the slope for the past few minutes. Now I'm going to ask you an application question about how the slope applies on this diagram or whatever. So I create these like review questions or these hypothetical questions or these application questions, and then I add a panel into it, and I can do something like possible answer. And so then the review question is, Josh is working on developing a social media marketing class right now. And so what are the reasons people are attracted to social media, right? And so that might be a question I would ask naturally in my class to get my students to start thinking about what we're trying to do. So then I could come in and create a possible answer. And so maybe I create like for and against or whatever, right? So I create a column that says for and a column that says against. And now when the student gets to this, when I save it, this eventually will scroll through. Oh, this is so pretty. Just gorgeous. So I scroll down through, they get this question and they don't see the answer immediately. Now they have to do something. They have to engage with my content and then they click on it and they're like, oh, that's what we're thinking. I especially love to put review questions and then to put a short video of me here. Right? So in my class, I might say, what are the reasons people are attracted? I did not spell that right. Anyway,
Not quite.
not quite. Sorry, it's just sitting there waiting for my downfall.
Different discussion.
Yes, it is, right? So then I can have a short video there saying, here are some of the reasons and here are some of the thoughts. And in my experience as a professional, here are some things that you might be aware of or want to consider, because our students are not paying for Pearson to teach them. They want to hear from our students or from our faculty. And this is a really great way to put a small video in that just says, I've been in the field. I know what this is. Let me help you see why this works. Or often our students have a misconception here. Let's walk through that so that you get one more exposure to it, whatever the case may be. But I really like the tabs here when I have like two of them for that reason, because they click and they have to physically do something for that. And I like it. A couple of caveats on the tabs as well. If you have like more than 4 levels, you probably shouldn't use the tabs, because the tab in how the coding works is it just wraps it around. And so then all of a sudden you've got layer and layer of tabs and the students don't know which tab they're on. And so if you also are going to have long panel headings, you probably don't want to use tabs either, because again, they will wrap in funny ways and you'll just be like, well, I can see it just fine and your students won't necessarily. Okay. Questions on those? I find them very effective. The students in City Labs's test cases really like them. They find them very engaging. I've also seen people do things like, here's a tab for the content and then a second tab for the activities, all in one page, and then they just link there. That can be a little hard depending on how you've set up your module, but that might be an option as well. Okay. All right, Levi, I'm going to pause because you've been quiet. Do you need anything?
No, but I do have some questions for you at the end, if that's okay.
I'm glad to do that. So.
Okay, perfect.
Keep going, and then at the end, be glad to do that. Okay. So the next item in the advanced element menu is going to be this description list. Now, a description list only allows me to insert it at a cursor. So if I want, I can do that, or I can just add a blank block, which is what I will choose to do. delete that insert content here, and now come in and do an add advanced element and add a description list. The description list is a vocabulary type list. It navigates a little differently than a bulleted list. So a student has the ability to correspond the term and the description in a screen reader a little bit better. So I can come in and I can type in my term, and then I can put in my I can put in the definition next to it. I can put images or whatever's in this second space if I want. I can add an item. And so I can do my term, and I can then again put in the description. And so I can also insert an equation onto this side if I want. Put it in on this side and it creates that. I can also add in really long-winded and I can make a term that goes that way, and I can add description, whatever. They do have this feature that will allow horizontal description lists, which look really clean.
Oh, yeah.
It's very apparent that this term goes here, this term goes here. This is really nice, especially if I have matching questions that will appear in a quiz where I'm going to ask them specifically a definition.
Mhm.
This really has good appeal to it. There is some research that shows that when students see things like this, it makes sense. You might want to be aware, though, that if I have a term that is too long, it will just truncate it. And there's no way we can change this gutter space. It is just how it is. So if you have something that gets truncated, then you'll have to use the vertical term. Okay? I can add a paragraph after it if I want to type more text here. I choose. The next advanced feature is embed content. So Canvas now has this insert embed, which if I have like a YouTube embed code, or if I have an embed code from another website, sometimes infographics will provide an embed code, things of that nature. Canvas has this, but when Canvas, before they created this second change in their content editor, that wasn't there. And so you had to go into the HTML, paste it in, and then come back out. So the creators of this tool added this embed content tool. If you use it, that's fine. If you use canvases, that's fine. If you don't embed anything, that's also fine. But they work the exact same. You just paste the embed code there. Key action items we do not use. So go ahead and skip those if you want. But the HTML snippets, these are like my bread and butter, and I love them. So you have to suffer through seeing them because they're great. So again, I'm going to create a blank block. I'm going to just come down to the Add Advanced Tools and then HTML snippets. Now, there's this menu for institutional snippets. We have not created any institutional snippets because we don't know what the institution quite wants yet. So I've just left them blank. Well, they exist kind of. There are also design tool snippets, but no one knows what any of these mean. So the makers gave us this preview snippet. So I just click on the preview snippet. That makes sense to me. I click on the preview snippet, and then I can come through and see what is available. So for example, if I want to include a block quote on a page, I can just now click on this orange button and it will insert the block quote. Block quote is when you're reading the magazine and in the middle of the article, they have the 4 or 5 words that highlight what Kim Kardashian feels about this fall's fashion, right? And it's whatever, and it's put in often lines around it of some kind and spaced around. Block quotes happen differently in HTML, but that's what it's doing, is it's creating some kind of an emphasis quote. I can change heading levels. I can, if I'm worried about like code and pre-formatted text, I can do that here. But the pre-formatted HTML snippets that I really like start after that. So for example, they have these little floating bubbles. So I can insert like this warning bubble. For example, it comes in. I can then edit this text however I want. So warning, remember to submit your paper in APA. And I could put that on the assignment right at the bottom, whatever that may be. It just appears as a cute little bubble, but then it also draws attention to the student's eye. Remember, this is due on Friday, not Thursday.
You don't have to do all the highlighting.
Exactly. Exactly. You don't have to highlight it. You don't have to, it just automatically is formatted. And then you can edit it. I also really like, if we keep scrolling down, they have these block alerts, and I find them just wonderful. So like I can put this important tip in here, and I can change the text if I want, or I can call it an important tip. And then I can change the tagline. So this is citing your sources. And then I can put in whatever here. Oops, that didn't highlight. Here is the example, whatever, right? Author, whatever. I can do all of this. Whatever. It, again, it just creates a visual change of space. I like them. I think that they're very clean. They look nice. You can, it automatically gives you a paragraph above and below. You can delete those
Is
if you
important
choose.
tip always blue, or are they just alternating colors?
I chose a different color this time. So in the snippet, they have blue, green, orange, or red. Those are the pre-formatted ones. If you're really good at coding, you can go in and change those. Or you could manipulate them using other tools like what I just showed you with the colors and spacing. But that's the colors that they come in with this. And so I just chose a different one. Up here, they only have blue, green, orange, or red if you use one of those little bubbles. Yeah.
So I've got it in there. How do I get it out if I don't want it anymore?
So if you don't want it, you're going to click on the paragraph before it and highlight all the way down to the paragraph below it and hit delete. They can get a little leery, and so when in doubt, just hit cancel.
Yeah,
And don't save the page.
Yeah.
That would be my recommendation. But generally, you can just highlight around it and delete it if you need to. My recommendation, because Canvas has the ability to view, so when I save a page, I can go into this view page history on the saved page, and then I can restore back to a previous version. And so if you save regularly, then you can get back to a previous version. So this is found in the 3 dots on the view page history.
So definitely save before you experiment.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, so my general go-to is if I do a section, like if I've gone through and typed out this whole overview, whatever, and maybe even done my objectives, I save. And then when I do something else, then I save, because then I can at least have it available and I don't have to redo all of that work. So that would be also an option is restoring back to, but in that case, we can just highlight around it and see where it goes. So there are a couple of other snippets that are really great for you to see. So the HTML snippets allow, they have just blocks. You can put a block in if you want with no border around it. I can make those call outs a little bit bigger and based on headings. But then we get to these like columns, and I think columns are fantastic for layout. So for example, I might insert a 2-column, 2/3 by 1/3 column. So I will insert that in. It comes in and you can see the light blue lines are separating out the columns. So I can come in and I can type in content here. I have all sorts of good words because words are wonderful. And I can make them all beautiful words. And they're long words, whatever. But then I can come into this content, this other sidebar. I insert an image. Again, I could upload an image. I'm just going to use Unsplash. Josh is here, so we'll do social media. Oh, that looks fun. I can submit that in. I can click on it. Again, I can edit that. Now I can fill the width, make it 100%. And I can add borders and whatever. But now it will always be in that second column. And so whenever my students are in, they will already have that space there. I don't have to provide any spacing. A lot of faculty members would do tables and they would put like their content and then a second table, they would put something on the side. But tables don't collapse. They want to be as big as they can be. And so this allows me the ability to create very collapsible. They will adjust to the screen size, but I get those columns still. Or if I wanted in like my textbook, they always have that tan bordered column that always has like real world applications. You should have a job in key vocabulary. I can do that now for free. And remember, I can also come in and change like the colors. So if I click on this div, it highlights that column. So now I can come in and make a nice background in that entire column, or I could make those key vocabulary terms that are very quick for them to study, or very quick for them to grab that you should become a social engineer or whatever. I can replicate some of those things.
And then you can add a new row?
So the easiest way to add a new row, you can type by just hitting enter as much as you want, or I can go in again to this advanced element and add in another column right below it. And then it will, well, that did it inside, but I can just
You were inside.
add in another one right below it if I choose to do that. And go that way. There are ways you can add the rows in, but this is a pretty easy way to do that. So one option, for example, they have this 4 equal columns. So I was helping Lindsay Cheney in her GNST course. She wanted to show 4 examples, and each example was going to link to a separate Canvas page. So we put in 4 columns. I typed in the name of each of the examples. We hyperlinked to the pages. We made them all not buttons, but the blocks that fill up the entire space. And they filled up, they all were consistent. And then the students just saw the links to the 4 buttons instead of 4 tables. So that's a pretty cool thing. They also have these really great images with captions. So for example, they have overlaid captions. These look trendy, they look nice. They also have like these black dark overlays. So all I would do is, in this case, I want it to be left flush. So I'm going to click on this overlap left. It inserts the image in. I click on the picture itself and then click on insert image. I can grab any of the images. I have a course image already. And so then I'm going to come in and we're going to pick the upside down Vespa. It brings it in. And then I bring in the caption and I can put in a Vespa. It just looks nice. It's pretty trendy. They also have just dividers if I wanted. So I can click somewhere, and if I want to put like a bookend divider in between, it creates just kind of some kind of a visual separator. These are not, you cannot change the colors of those, unfortunately. They're just what they are. But they can be really nice if you want to create some visual spacing. Okay. Questions about the HTML snippets. You will guaranteed mess up your page when you play with HTML snippets. Your cursor is going to be in the wrong spot. You're going to add something in. It's just going to be how it is. Don't be afraid to delete it. Don't be afraid to cancel. Play around with it a little bit, but everyone messes up with those. We just do. It's just how it is. They also provide the ability to insert icons wherever I want now, as opposed to only in section headings. So for example, I want to click right here by Vespa, so I can insert an icon, and maybe I'll type in motorcycle because I think that is one, and so I can put my icon wherever I want now. So this is really useful, for example, if I come down and I want to say something like, follow this cool person on Twitter at cool person, whatever, and then I highlight that and I make it a link. I can insert that icon there, like Twitter or whatever I choose to do. Okay. You can also like modify icons, and so I could come in here and change that icon if I wanted to, and delete out the, come on. Anyway, you can go in and modify icons, but it's not wanting to play fair today.
Can you make it bigger?
No, unfortunately. The icon will be, well,
It's just always little.
yes, I think because it's tied to the type of whatever it is, it will always be the size that it's that it's based on in the formatting. Yeah, that's a great question. Not one I've played around with a lot, but it doesn't look like you can make it bigger. I bet, well, with the code, we could go in and make it bigger, but chances are not really. So, okay. I'm going to ignore this module list for a moment. They work really well on home pages, and we'll talk about them in just a moment. However, I'm going to add another block and show you this module progress. So they have 3 different types of module progress bars. So this first one is just a loading screen. Shows you where you are out of however many things in your module that you've created. This icon progress navigator, what it does is it creates an icon for the different elements in your module. These are hyperlinks, and so I can click on that and it will take me to that item. So for example, down here at the end, they have that discussion board, and the discussion board says refer back to the article that was 7 pages ago. Now they don't have to click back 7 times. They can just click on this link and go back to that reading page that was 7 pages ago. My personal favorite is this module item completion. So if in the module I've said that they should either view or contribute or submit or score at least or whatever, when they do that, it turns green so that they know that they've completed that. These are also linkable so that they can go back in and go navigate between them. So I create a blank box, I insert my cursor where I want it to go, and I click insert at the cursor. And now it just shows this thing that says it will appear in the browser, it's hidden in the app. You will not see it until it's associated with a module. So I'm going to show you how this looks. So my students come in and they are going to do chapter 1, this introduction to all things. They click on the overview page, they read all of this good stuff, and then at the bottom, they can see where they are and what is coming up. So I can click on any of these and go to them. So if on the home or on the overview page, I talk about the fact that they will need to do a big paper, they can click and just see the big paper requirements already. Okay. I can, yeah.
Sorry, I have a question. So in Canvas, you can set it so the students have to go through your module in order. So will that still work if you have that set?
What that will do is it will say you need to complete these other objects before you can go to this page.
And then they wouldn't be able to jump ahead.
Exactly, it would just be used in retrospect.
So they go.
So these are the content completion. This page shows this circle, so it shows they're on page 2, but they can go to page 3 or 4, whatever, this way. I think this is such a beautiful page. We should all do this. Sorry, that was not the one I was thinking of. The discussion board also has this, just this monitor of like, they've done 4 of the 6 items. So it's kind of whatever you choose. Like I say, this one is good if they're moving very linearly and you don't want them to go back. But in general, I just really like the module completion item. If I want to,
Question.
yeah.
Okay, so it shows them that they have submitted something or something. I still had students last semester having issues with the Canvas app on phones, saying they hadn't submitted, and I never got it.
The Canvas app is the devil,
Okay,
and we should do all we can to convince our students not to use it,
okay.
because they will be happier just using their phone and a web. I mean, my phone has Chrome and it has Firefox.
Yeah.
Just use that.
Yeah, okay.
But they're, yeah, that is.
So it's the app that's the problem.
Mhm. And it's probably the iPhone version, would be my bet.
Mhm.
Not knowing your students' specific examples, my bet is it's the iPhone app, because iPhone tends to have the most problems, and Safari also. So if they submit things in Safari, there's a good chance it won't submit.
Oh, right.
And so I recommend don't use Safari and don't use Edge, because sometimes it just doesn't submit things. I also recommend don't use the iPhone app, because it just has funny bugs in it. We also see things like the iPhone app or the Safari browser won't allow like recordings to happen. It doesn't connect with the media tools. And so those are just flukes of iPhone-ness.
But in this case, they would show it's been completed, and maybe it hasn't.
It would show them that, well, that I'm not sure. That is an interesting question. I will have to do some playing around with it
Because
because,
they've told me the app told them they were done,
yeah,
they were submitted.
if the app says that they have submitted it, it would record it in that progress bar. It would be in the same functionality. What's happening is the file is not being attached into the program. That's my, yeah.
Okay.
It's an awful thing.
It
Like
is. It's so terrible.
I wish personally that they would not have the app. And may the God Canvas people come and smite me. I wish they didn't have the app. I wish they would just tell students to use the web browser, because that's more stable.
Yeah.
The app just doesn't seem to work very well. So,
Okay.
yeah. If I want to change this, I just click somewhere in it, and then I can click on replace, and it will change it out and make it whatever I want. Okay. So we have that. Objectives and outcomes are good if you want to create objectives and outcomes using their tools. So you click in it, it will give you Bloom's taxonomy. I want to have an understanding level. I want the students to illustrate, and so then it puts the word illustrate right there. It's really awesome.
No.
So I ignore this. You're welcome to use it. But there are some other cool features. So the pop-up content, usually, I'm not going to do this on this page. Usually I put the module completion workflow, that module navigation at the very bottom. But I'm just going to add another block in so that you can see how this works. So they also have some HTML coding that allow us to get into these pop-up contents. So I will show you some examples on my screen. The first is called a tooltip. A tooltip, the student hovers over the word and something short appears in this black text. A popover, the student hovers over the text and something bigger happens. You can include images and videos in a popover. You cannot in a tooltip. The modal, the student comes in and they have to click something, and then it creates a complete pop-up. So, for example, if I come in and I'm typing along and I want to say something like, in this class, we will use netiquette. And I've already defined netiquette for them before in another page, but I want to remind them what that netiquette word means. I can highlight the word that I want, and then I will show you a tooltip just for a moment. So I click on the plus tooltip. You'll notice that it gets the marching ants around netiquette. And then this black box appears that says tooltip. I find the black box very difficult to edit in. The cursor doesn't seem to like to go in it. I find it very confusing. So they have over here in the right, they have the ability for you to get this tooltip text. So netiquette, I could come in and do something like, remember those are our nice guidelines, right? So now, when a student comes into this, they scroll down, they see the ants, they hover over it, and there's my little comment that says, be nice.
Is the tooltip supposed to be short?
It has to be short. It won't take, it has a character limit, and I don't remember what that character limit is, but it does have to be short. So I might see this like, Kari might use this when she's talking about, she's already talked about the mean of a sample space, and she wants to remind the students in the example that we're taking the mean, and she just wants to provide a brief explanation of, remember the mean is adding up all the values and dividing by n. That could be something you could use with a netiquette or a tooltip. But I find them very hard to use. I don't like them myself. I just don't use them. I don't like them. So I use the other options much more. So coming down again, I will do in this class, we will use netiquette. So if I highlight this and I come in and I click on the advanced elements and I want the pop-up content, I add a popover, it gives me an actual box to type in, and I find this much easier to use. And so then I can come in and edit this, and if I go into the YouTube and we type in eventually netiquette, 9 million videos come up, and I really like those. Maybe, thank you for that. And then I can grab the embed code, and I can come back into this, insert, embed, and I can grab the embed code, I can submit that in. It will fit there. I can also like type in text, can go here. I can hyperlink, right? So I can put in this hyperlink and grab any link and do whatever. Okay, so I can be more active in this tooltip or in this popover. So now when the student sees it, they come in and they actually have like things they can play. I can get them to hyperlink. I like these a lot better. I find that they also are more easy to manipulate if I want to do something. The final option is that pop over. And so again, in this class, I can highlight that. I launch my rocket ship. go to this, go down to the popover, add in a modal. The modal allows me to create a title, so I like doing things like whatever that highlighted term is. So I do that, and then again, I can just put in whatever content I want. It grays out the screen and the student then has to view it. So one other thing that I like using these for, so we talked about the tabs being a good way to ask questions. I really like using, if I can get my cursor to keep up with me. So here is going to be my deep question for the day, right? Why are people mean? So I get this deep thought question, then I put in possible answer here, or Justin's thoughts, or Justin's musings, or whatever, right? I highlight it. I click on add advanced element, I make it a modal. A modal is a link. So I can type in my possible answer here, right? Why are people mean? Because they just are, whatever. But then I click on the possible answer. It's a link. I can click on the target, and then I can make it a button. And so now they get my deep question, but then they have to click on something before they actually see my answer. And then they have to click on something else before they can get back to just scrolling through the page. So that is one way I like using those modals a lot. Okay, the final advanced element on these pages are the quick checks. Quick checks, you again have the option to add them as a block or a cursor. I think they look better as a whole new block because of the heading structure. So I like using that. When you bring in the quick check, I can put my question text here. And then I can put multiple answers here. I have to designate which one is correct, and only one can be correct. So these are just a basic multiple choice question, not a select all that apply, not fill in the blank. This will never go into the gradebook. This can't be tied to the gradebook, and the student has the ability to answer it as many times as they want. But I can come in and just see if they're learning what I want them to learn. So what is logos? And so then I can put in the quick check. It's the logical appeal. Now this response text to be displayed when this answer is selected will appear whether or not you've changed it. So you should change this to be actual response text, right? So logos, logical appeal, we could say logos is the logical appeal or whatever. And then I tell that it is correct by clicking on this green check mark, and that says that that's the correct answer. And so then I put in the emotional appeal. And I say something like, the emotional appeal is pathos. Now to add an answer, I can add an answer there. And I can do this as long as I want. And so then I have the credibility of the author. And then I say, oh, this is ethos. Okay, and I can go and do all of that. I've designated which is correct. When I save this to show you what happens, the student comes in, they read all of this content. I just want them to see what the logos is. They click on emotional appeal, they check the answer, and it says that's wrong. And I can go through and I can just click all of these. Whatever, I don't care. But it just provides a quick grab for them to make sure they're understanding.
And does that automatically make it so the page isn't checked off?
Yes.
Okay.
So it automatically prohibits them from moving to the next button, and it automatically prohibits them from having the mark as done.
Great.
So that is a neat feature. Okay, so now I'm going to go to a home page. We created a home page last week. I need to actually organize my life. Where did I put it? Was last week the 15th? No, it was the 12th. Front, home. Wow, that was creative of me. All right, so we created this homepage last week, and this is a pretty reasonable homepage. But there are two tools that we have available that can be really useful. In the advanced elements, they have this module list and the TA details. I'm going to start with the TA details. I've already created a block called instructor details, so I'm going to click in here and remove that instructor information block just so that it will be available. I go to my advanced elements down to the teacher TA details. What it does is it looks for any person in the people list with the role of teacher or TA, and it will display all of those names. I'm the only person in this course that has that, and so I come in and I click on the down arrow to edit my information. This image comes from Canvas. So if I have an image in my profile, that is the image that will be there. You can modify that. It gets a little finicky, but we can modify it. Usually the text right here is just my first and last name. Sometimes it remembers the fact that I have modified this. Sometimes it doesn't. You may just have to do that yourself. Now, this block that says teacher, I don't care about that because I'm the only one in the class. But if I had a TA, or if this were a section that had multiple teachers, I might choose to leave that. But I don't care about the teacher, so I'm going to click on the check mark that gets rid of that title. Now, my email automatically populates. My phone number sometimes automatically populates and sometimes doesn't. You may have to put that in. This university symbol will ask for your department. I think that that's kind of silly. So I put my actual office there. And that makes sense to me. And then I put my office hours in the lower block. So now I can insert that as a content block, and it automatically puts that at the bottom of my set of pages. This is editable, so I can go in. For example, there are faculty members who have their office phone, but then they also have their text phone, right? And so you can text me at this number, whatever. So I can go in and edit it. If I click right before text, remember in the advanced elements, I can add an icon. I can insert it at the text or at the cursor. SMS is the abbreviation for text, so I can put that there. I can even come in and hit enter and do about me if I want, or I can enter down a little bit further and make this about me statement. And I can change it so that it's like a cool heading and make it fill in, and Justin is awesome. Whatever. I can edit this all I want, but it automatically populated. Now, if you choose to change some of those details, when I go into the teacher details, I can go in and change these. You will click on this update details, and that will update based on whatever you want. I can also click remove, and it will remove those if I choose to do that. Okay, so there's the teacher details. The final thing is this module list. The module list is going to put on the home page links to your modules in different and unique ways. So the first thing we're going to add and configure the module list. So it then came in, and you'll see that it's included only some of my modules. I want it to include more of these modules, so I'm going to tell it which modules I want to include so that you can see how this works. So I've got a module list. I can update the icons in front of each of those modules. Yeah, Josh, go ahead.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I'm just listening.
You're okay. You got it. His mouth moved, so I thought he was getting ready to take a breath and ask a question, right? Acquired in existence. Okay, we can also update module names if we choose to. It will naturally divide into columns. If you have really long module names, I would recommend 2 columns. If you have short ones, you might be able to get away with 3. 4 is probably too narrow, just in general. So 2 or 3 would be my go-to.
Now,
What do you mean by columns? What's it doing?
Okay, so this is going to only show it in one column,
Right?
but when I save the page, it's going to break that into 2 columns. So that then it has
Oh,
these in 2
so it's
columns.
just not so long.
Exactly,
Oh.
exactly. It shows me which are not published and which are published. It will not show the student that.
Oh.
But what we can also do with this, by clicking back into it, there are a couple of other nice features. So this is the module list. I can have it linked to that section of the module page. So when you click on the module menu over here in the left navigation or at the top up here,
Right.
it takes them to the top of the module menu. I can, when I just have it go here to the module pages, it will open up to that module menu, but at that module as opposed to the top of the module page. So my module list, when I click module, it always takes me to start here.
Yeah.
But when I have these and I click on this module 2, more all of the things, instead of taking me to the top of my module list, it will take me here. It will take me to that particular module in the module list.
Just you.
No, it will take the student as
It's a
well.
student.
Or
Oh.
I can have them go to the first item. So instead of having them go to the module menu, I could open that first item and then it would automatically, instead of taking them to this view, it would take them to the overview page. That's up to you. Both have good purposes. We can also include quick links, and I like these. I think they're really useful. So the quick links will display on the page the actual module that they're on, and it will show all of the components of the module. So for example, I'm going to show you the current module first, and I will click on this module 1 as my current module. I save it, the student comes in, and they now see all of that module on the home page, and they can go to those whatever they need to.
Now, because you chose it, I mean, what, I don't know what's
Yeah,
happening
sorry,
for
can
the
you go back and
students.
show how to do that again? I'm a little confused.
Okay, let me, okay, we've got 2 different requests going on. So let me show you the student for just a moment. Okay, so I'm going to publish some of these modules so that they are visible to the student view as well. So I click in here and I'm going to come to this module list and I'm going to publish, oh, it's not going to let me publish it from here. That's a shame. Okay, so what this is doing is it is showing all of the pieces of the module. So what I did is I want it to include the quick links, is what I clicked on. And I clicked on current. So I have the ability to designate what the current module is so that it will appear on the home page.
Now, that's because you put in a date?
I haven't yet, but I could. I just went in and marked the check mark. So it's completely possible that I go in and I could change this check mark each week,
Oh, I don't know.
but I don't have to do
I'm
that.
not gonna remember.
Okay, but what that does is that provides a list of all of those modules on that home page so they can see what is happening. Does that make sense, Hillary?
Yes, so how do you, like Carter said, how do you do it so you don't?
Okay. So there are 2 options. I will show you the one that I don't prefer, but you can use. You click on this show dates, and what it does is it creates the dates for this course. So then I can come in and click on the start date, which was back here, and then the end date. I end on Mondays, and it automatically fills in the rest. Now, sometimes it will transfer. Like if you bring this from a course from semester to semester, sometimes those dates will transfer, sometimes they don't. It's just kind of funny. So you just have to go in and click on the start date, and then you can modify. And I can even go in and modify specifically how I want them to be, but it just kind of guesses based on what I've got there.
But
Then-
with dates, they can't go ahead or behind?
They can if they're visible. It's just which one will appear on the home
Okay,
screen.
okay.
Mhm. But my preference is, instead of doing current, if I click on all, what happens is now it creates a different type of navigation. It creates little buttons that shows all of the modules, and then the student can just click on it, and then it will show what is available in that module. And then they can go to the aspect of the module that they want to go to. I like this. This works really well for our students. It also, so the nice thing is, if we publish this and go to student view, so as a student, I come in and I can now see which of the things I've also completed and which of the things I have not completed. And I can go into whatever module and catch up on all of those things. That does mean you have to put some of that into the module navigation. But that takes just a few minutes. Like this module 2, I haven't gone in and made any of those visible or like complete the task in the module navigation, so they won't see that they've done that. But if I've done that, then they see that, and this is really useful, I think. So now the module menu, this button takes them to the module page. They can then navigate how they choose to, and these buttons then take them to the specific aspects of the module that they want.
Okay, now, can I make those look any better? Because you've got 6 on one row and 2 on the other.
That is an interesting question. So I think because I've got that is a really interesting question.
Oh, and I'm wondering if I just make the window smaller, is it going to reset those?
It should be responsive.
Yeah, it is.
So I think that has to do with like the number of columns. So if I made them 3 columns, I think, well, no, but still kind of is funny.
I would have changed to 5 and 3. That's interesting. But it's still responsive to your page.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway,
Okay.
okay. So I have now gone over 8 minutes. I apologize. But can I answer questions? I know, Levi, you've got some questions as well, but are there questions for the general group that I can answer or things that I can help with?
Just real quick, as you add additional modules, it automatically updates this, or you gotta come back?
That is an interesting question, and it's one I don't often think about addressing beforehand, so thank you for bringing it up. No, so you have to go back in and edit the module and then click back on this module list and click on the update modules.
Okay.
And then that will, so like, if I wanted to add in a couple of these other modules, then I would have to update them.
Okay.
Yes, that's a great question. So that is there. Other questions or things I can help with? Now you could put this on every page as well if you wanted to, but I find it just clunky. So I would only put it on my home page or maybe an overview page as well. But they do have a navigation menu that does put this on each page. Again, I find it very overwhelming, and so I don't tend to use it. But this is available.
Okay, now, I didn't send you a link. Do I send it to you or to the TLC?
Or
For completing these pages?
you will go to the TLC's homepage.
Right, and it tells me where.
And then there is a request forms button. And then you want to do the, DesignPLUS credential one is the third one on the bottom. And then you will just use this.
Okay.
Pretty simple, just has a couple of questions that asks you to get your info and then submit the links.
Yeah.
So we can keep track of things.
I know we're getting swamped this summer. Cade got money and he's making my life very full. So
But it's good, we got more engagement with DesignPLUS, which we're excited about.
it does. Okay, Levi, I'm gonna stop the recording so that you can ask your questions, okay?
Okay, perfect.
You want to like meet in a separate space?
Oh, that works too. Either way.
Well, do you mind if other people